Hello everyone, I'm Chifei Fan. In Season 2 of Operation 2027, we got everyone up to speed on what Taiwan's neighbors think of China and how they might respond to a potential conflict in the Taiwan Strait. If you haven't watched it yet, please go check it out. For those of you who have watched Season 2, you might have noticed that no matter whose story we're telling, a certain country would always show up in the narrative, playing a huge role in the outcome. Some might even say they were the star of our show. What country was that? The United States, of course. But wait, unlike the other countries from Season 2, the U.S. is on the opposite side of the world from Taiwan. So why do they even care about Taiwan? Well, let's hear what members of the Congress in the U.S. have to say.
Taiwan and its ability to retain its freedom is of great interest to us and to other nations around the world.
Countering Beijing's aggression towards Taiwan must remain one of our top priorities in foreign policy here in Washington.
Why do so many U.S. lawmakers think that defending Taiwan is important? Today, we are going to explore what would happen to the U.S. if China took over Taiwan. If the U.S. did not view China as its biggest rival, it could consider ignoring the fate of Taiwan. But if the U.S. sees China as its top competitor, then Taiwan becomes critically important. First, let's take a look at the trade between Taiwan and the United States. Everyone knows the U.S. buys a lot of chips from Taiwan, but what does Taiwan buy from the United States? In fact, Taiwan is the 12th largest export market for the United States. That's right, Taiwan is up there. It buys more from the US than Italy, Russia, Australia, or India, just to name a few. The main products the US exports to Taiwan are precision machinery and components, accounting for 37.5%, and oil, gas, and minerals, accounting for 18%. In particular, since 2018, U.S. exports to Taiwan have increased for two key reasons. Number one, Trump. At the top of Trump's agenda is reducing the trade deficit with Taiwan. Since Taiwan lacks natural resources, buying them from the U.S. is an easy way to balance out the trade relationship. Number two, minimizing energy supply risk. The more Taiwan diversifies its energy imports, the lower the risk of supply disruptions. In the past, Taiwan primarily imported oil and gas from Russia, Southeast Asia, or the Middle East. But the advancements in U.S. shale oil technology have lower costs, giving Taiwan the option to import more energy from the U.S. Currently, the U.S. is Taiwan's second biggest oil supplier, covering about 30% of Taiwan's total imports. Again, this aligns with Trump's goal to make the U.S. an energy superpower, so we can expect these exports to continue growing in the coming years. And then there's arms sales. Taiwan is the fourth largest purchaser of American military equipment in the world, from destroyers and frigates in the sea, to M60 tanks on land, to F-16 fighter jets in the air. The majority of our hardware is made in the USA. Since 1950, Taiwan has purchased over $50 billion worth of arms from the United States. In the past 8 years alone, the U.S. government has approved over $23.8 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. Recently, many of these have been delivered to our doorstep, including the HIMARS rocket system, M1A2 battle tanks, and the Army Tactical Missile System. This equipment not only boosts Taiwan's arsenal, but also helps chip away the U.S. Taiwan trade deficit. So, what does the U.S. buy from Taiwan? A significant 62.3% consists of precision machinery and electronic components, and semiconductors are the most important, of course. Taiwan leads the world in semiconductor manufacturing. Not only does Taiwan command a 92% market share in advanced chip production, but we also hold a 43% market share in more mature chip technologies. This dominance is mainly due to Taiwan's low production costs, providing the U.S. with high-quality, reliable chips at half the price. That's why American tech giants like Qualcomm, NVIDIA, Intel, and Apple rely almost entirely on chips that are made in Taiwan. The military sector in particular is heavily dependent on Taiwanese chips. U.S. military systems such as radar fighter jets, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles all need chips for control. U.S. defense contractors purchases their chips directly from companies like Qualcomm and Intel, who get their chips from Taiwan. This shows that if Taiwan's semiconductor production were disrupted by war, not only would most U.S. industries grind to a halt, but American military capability would also be severely affected. Taiwan's critical role in the semiconductor supply chain is the very reason our tensions with China have become a global talking point. Bloomberg once warned that if war broke out in the Taiwan Strait, it could cost the global economy $1 trillion, wiping out 10% of the world's GDP in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, according to the World Bank, the U.S. GDP accounts for 25% of the global total, with 10% of that coming from exports. Although China currently only accounts for 17%, the GDP of the entire Asia region is expected to make up half of the world's GDP by 2050. We previously mentioned that if China were to invade Taiwan, it could gain control over the entire Western Pacific trade route. From there, it could leverage its geopolitical advantage and put gradual pressure on Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asian countries, and Australia. On this point, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Elbridge Colby once said that if China controls Asia, it could surpass the U.S. economically. Other countries will align themselves with China, giving it the power to shape the global order and rewrite the rules in favor of its economy at America's expense. This is not a new idea. The U.S. think tank Council on Foreign Relations discussed it as early as before World War II, and their conclusion was, yes, the United States could stay home and mind its own business without fear of a military threat from other countries, but authoritarian regimes could then control the rest of the world, and they would cut America off from foreign trade. So the most advantageous situation for the U.S. is a world of free trade and interaction. But free and fair trade doesn't happen on its own. It must be created and maintained through careful geopolitical strategy. And where is the most important geopolitical region for upholding a free world order led by the United States? East Asia. This is why Taiwan's security is vital to America's prosperity and strength. So, competing with China's economy is one part of the picture. But China poses an even greater threat to America with their hardline military strength. Since Xi Jinping came to power, China has aggressively expanded its military capabilities and reach. Ideally, America wants to stop China from dominating the Western Pacific without fighting a war. This would avoid the economic losses caused by conflict while maintaining the current international order. In simple terms, what America needs is a fence that contains China, and that fence is the island chain. The island chain strategy is basically comprised of a three-layer fence. The first one's here, the second one here, and the third one here. The most important fence is the first island chain, the front row prime real estate, which includes Japan, the Ryukyu Islands, Taiwan, the Philippines, Borneo, and the Malay Peninsula. The island chain strategy serves American security interests in three major ways. First, it traps the PLA. A quick look at the map shows how small the area is between the first island chain and China. You can't really squeeze that many ships in such a tight space. The island chain effectively restricts the PLA's operational range and blocks their area of expansion. Second, it secures the Pacific Ocean. From the economic perspective, all of the trade between East Asia, Oceania, and the Americas passes through the Pacific Ocean, and these trade routes need to be policed to maintain order. In terms of national defense, the west coast of the U.S. borders the Pacific Ocean, so they need to secure the ocean if they want to secure their border. Third, and the greatest advantage of the island chain strategy, is cost-effective. A single island can serve as both a naval and air force base, controlling a radius of 500 to 1,000 km of sea and airspace. This leaves the PLA with just a few safe places to enter the Pacific. All the U.S. needs to do is block these entrances, and they can avoid a costly cat-and-mouse game on the open seas. The PLA won't be able to force their way through without suffering heavy losses. If China wanted to take over the island chain, they would need a massive mobilization of manpower and resources. Meanwhile, the defenders can just sit on the islands with their artillery and missiles and watch the attackers swimming over. When they reach halfway, the defenders can shoot them like fish in a barrel. That's how the U.S. secures the entire Pacific at minimal cost, by controlling the first island chain. And the secure Pacific is a secure West Coast. Central to the island chain strategy is ensuring that the countries along the chain are all on the same page. This requires alliances. Securing the island chain with allies is undoubtedly the most cost-effective way for the U.S. to defend the Pacific. Yet people still argue, Asia is so far away from the U.S., why would we defend it? So why don't we imagine what would happen if the island chain were broken? 1. The PLA expands its reach. If China takes Taiwan, it could gain control over the Bashi Channel, giving it easy and secure access to the Pacific. This would allow China to outflank the Ryukyu Islands, mainland Japan, and the Philippines, putting pressure on these U.S. allies to switch sides. China could also turn Taiwan into a forward operating naval base, directly threatening U.S. forces in Guam and shrinking the U.S. military's operating area. 2. It shakes the confidence of allied nations. Alliances are built on trust. Everyone aligns with the U.S. because they trust that if they are attacked, the U.S. will fight back on their side. If the U.S. stands by and does nothing when Taiwan is attacked, other nations would question whether the U.S. will keep its promises. The loss of confidence would drive some nations to align with China out of fear or develop their own nuclear weapons for self-defense. Either way, it is a nightmare for the United States. 3. It disrupts the rule-based international order. A fundamental principle of today's international order is that no country shall use force to change national borders. China's ongoing harassment of Taiwan is their way of testing the order. If the U.S. lets China take Taiwan without doing anything, China will see it as an open invitation to start pushing America around. The U.S.-led international order would collapse, destroying the world of free trade and open interaction that benefits the U.S. the most. We can see from all this that although Taiwan is small, its economic, political, and military concerns are deeply interwoven with America's core interests. This is why, despite the lack of a formal military alliance between Taiwan and the United States, American lawmakers and government officials are always coming to visit Taiwan, and why the U.S. strongly supports Taiwan participating in international organizations pushing back against pressure from China, and why they continue to sell weapons to Taiwan, strengthening its defense capabilities. I know a lot of you might be concerned about whether the newly inaugurated President Trump will remain committed to Taiwan or whether he will give us the extensive backing that he gave during his first term. Colby has also said that America has a strong interest in defending Taiwan, but Americans could survive without it. However, I want to emphasize one thing. Most Taiwanese people are very clear. Relying on the U.S. to take the lead in the conflict with China is a pipe dream. What we need right now is mainly two things. 1, help reforming and strengthening Taiwan's military. In other words, arms sales and training. As long as the U.S. keeps selling advanced weapons to Taiwan, it will not only strengthen Taiwan's defenses, but also support Trump's goal of making America's defense industry great again. There are major issues with this at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. government has already approved over $23.8 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. However, according to a Cato Institute report, as of November 2024, the U.S. has yet to deliver $21.95 billion worth of these orders. This has severely impacted Taiwan's plan to build up its military. During the last U.S. election, several of Trump's advisors repeatedly emphasized that Taiwan should increase its defense spending to show our resolve for defending our homeland. But now it seems that even if we devoted 10% of our GDP to defense, the U.S. defense industry still couldn't keep up with our demands. 2. Help countering China diplomatically. Another major headache for Taiwan is China's diplomatic legal warfare, such as when they spread false claims that UN Resolution 275A proves that Taiwan is a part of China, or when they pressure international organizations to prevent Taiwan from joining. China's diplomatic bullying of Taiwan is its way of asserting dominance and challenging America's leadership. By helping Taiwan resist this suppression, the U.S. effectively contains China's influence and reinforces its superiority in the global arena. Taiwan may be thousands of kilometers away from U.S. with a relatively small land area, but our achievements in democracy, freedom, and technology make us a defining success story for the international order led by the U.S. The Taiwan Strait conflict is not just a battle for Taiwan's survival as a nation, it is a fight to defend the values of democracy and freedom, championed by both Taiwan and the United States. I would like to end with a quote from Elbridge Colby's article in Time magazine. Defending far off Taiwan and our allies seem to many like yet another foolish military misadventures for our country. But it is not. This strategy is rooted in practical, hard-nosed assessment of what is in America's concrete economic and political interests. If you find this video helpful, please leave a comment and let us know your thoughts. If you are in a hurry, you can also just give us a like. 2027 is coming. Let's be vigilant together. I'm Chifei Fan. See you next time. This video is in collaboration with TaiwanPlus.